Hello, my name is Soei-Winkels and I'm really happy to see you here in our session. I'm sorry. So, start again, okay? Good. So, do you want to know the 10 steps to get the job that you really want based on your transferable skills as a PhD student or as a candidate and also as a postdoc? My name is Soei-Winkels, and I'm really happy to see you here for our National Postdoc Appreciation Week. We are celebrating postdocs, and I think that we all know how hard they are working. And if you're a PhD student or a candidate and you aspire to become a postdoc and a professor, I welcome you. I'm a professor myself. I think it's a great job. I love that job, but still I say we should be aware of the risks and not becoming a professor, because the majority, to be honest, the majority of our early career scientists won't become professor, won't be tenured. And I think it's only fair to share also, how to market your skills outside of academia. And that's why I've got this free email course. And it's essentially, this session is about all these 10 steps to transition your career into business. All right, so we've got step number 1, your readiness to leap. And in my first session for National Postdoc Appreciation Week, I've covered this thoroughly. So just to sum up, I've got, you have to think about all these factors in 2 buckets, right? So the first bucket is internal factors. So everything that you bring to the table, everything that is relevant to you, everything that you want to also do in another career. Some of your skills you won't need at all anymore, and some of your skills you will want to use still in your new job. And that's why it's so important that you think about yourself, you make an inventory of all your skills, of all your values, of your whatever is needed, important for you, so that you have a clear picture of how your new career should be or shouldn't be. All right, because I know that in academia, there are a couple of things that you probably don't want to have anymore. And it's really important that you don't find this somewhere else again. So you have to know what you don't want and what you want. And then obviously it's not just about you, but instead it should be also about the external market, right? So, I mean, we've got the pandemic. So obviously all the companies that have, they also had a hard time, and also through this Ukraine crisis, the war, and also the energy crisis, I guess that a lot of companies and industries are having a hard time ahead. So not only through the pandemic, but also ahead. Because to be honest, I think that when I look at the numbers of consulting companies that have shout out the best year ever and something like that, that's probably because they've been helping companies to reshape their organizations, to build new digital business models, to merge, to acquire new companies, or to get dead end units out of the way, out of the board, so that they essentially can go into the future without certain units. And that's mergers and acquisitions. And that's why there's a lot of action in the external market. And you want to make sure that if you are leaping out, you won't be, that you will find a good company where you can thrive for at least a couple of years. I'm not saying for the rest of your life. I'm just saying for the next couple of years, okay? And if you want to dive into that a little bit more, then I can recommend to you the Wisecast podcast. They are in their 3rd season at the moment, and the first episode that I listened to in their third season is really also about venturing out and also becoming an entrepreneur with Stefana Wisner, I think. And that's why it's so important to look out for this podcast. It's hosted by Dr. Richard Chandra and also Dr. Albert Miller. Both of them are professors. And I think that you will enjoy that podcast. And also, just to think about what I have said in that podcast and to recap that here is, I think that most of us who have never been outside of academia, who just became bachelors and masters and PhDs, and ideally, because you can't lose time, ideally you've been doing this right after one another. That means you haven't gained a lot of outside information or experience other than the usual students' jobs, right? So for us, having no business experience, that's something very frightening to be in business. And maybe you've gone into science because you don't like the business, the capitalistic trades and something like that. And it's important to check whether these are wrong misconceptions. I mean, misconception is double wrong, but if it's a misconception, then maybe it's time to acquaint yourself and find a way how you can, analyze and get to know the unknown yet. Okay. Next one. So it's about the sustaining LinkedIn. The second step is to sustain your visibility and audibility game, right? Because you haven't been known. You don't have a track record of going out into the business yet. But instead, you've got a really for your being a postdoc or a PhD student candidate who is leaping into science and still wants to see whether there's maybe an exit or something like that. So the majority of your day-to-day activities is still science. And that means that you have to be even stronger in your investment. You have to double down in becoming known for someone who is ready to go out of or to exit out of academia and to enter business. If you mean business, you have to go to LinkedIn. And that's why it's so important. And I dedicated actually a 1 hour or so session on that second point. So how to use LinkedIn or social media for your career. And it's unlike, to recap that, it's unlike science communication. It has the same storytelling ideas, but it's totally different in terms of who the target groups are, what they're interested in, how they need the information, stuff like that. And it's also unlike social media like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and also, the usual Twitter and stuff. So next third part is you have to connect with the right people. And that's also something where I say, finding the right people has never been easier than in this day and age. I mean, I'm 41. That means what we had as internet was really limited. And when I was a PhD student, when I was orienting myself to become some, different job, something like that, I only had newspapers, I only had the internet, but I really didn't use social media as such because it wasn't that much advanced. The concept of social media wasn't ready yet. But nowadays you do have that. And I want you to connect with the right people. And it's so easy, especially through the Corona crisis. People do open up on LinkedIn and also on Instagram and also on TikTok. I've found so many scientific friends via social media, which I wouldn't have been able to make if I were just, staying here 20 years ago. So try to find the right people and to identify informative patterns of what they do and what they post and how they write it and stuff like that. Because I think that business language is something different, right? So they're using return on invest and scalability. What do they mean? And if they have projects that are run agile, what everything means is maybe not what the terminology agile means to you. If you've been, if agile is something like, okay, so as a physicist, it's something different, or as a physician, I think. So it does mean something different, and it's an IT jargon. So for project management, that is run differently than the usual traditional waterfall but you don't also know what waterfall is. And that's what I'm telling you. You have to get to know the language, and that you can only emulate by the role modeling people. That's the key people you need to connect. All right, the next part is number 4, and that's your future of work, right? It's your future of work, not mine, not theirs, yours. And obviously that could be oriented in the general future of work. And there's lots, if you type in future of work in Google, you'll find a lot of sources, and you can look for that term and then dissect which of the industries are on the, what are emerging technologies, something like that. So because if you have emerging technologies and a lot of people are investing in that, or another venture capitalists are investing in that, that could be some sign that it's a great direction to go, because that would probably in a couple of years really thriving. And that's what you really want to join a company that will be thriving in a couple of years, because then you will have a great agenda together. They have a bigger agenda than you, but it's actually going the right direction. Okay, but the right direction is for you different to as compared to others, because it does matter whether you bring the right transferable skills to the table. If you don't know your transferable skills, I recommend watching one of my videos where I show you how information interviews are, so that you can understand what the transferable skills are as an example. Okay, good. And then talking about transferable skills, really what we mean by that is that they are monetizable, so that the company can make money out of that. It doesn't matter whether your skill is nice, it's enjoyable, something like that. If the company cannot make this a difference in the product or service or whatever, then they don't care. It has to be a transferable skill that you bring to the table from your PhD, but it also makes them money. It's a business. It's not something, I've never seen that they are investing in me just because I'm a good singer, but no one has paid me to sing. All the skills that I bring to the table among all the transferable skills, singing is not the skill that they pay me for. Okay, so information interviews. As I already alluded to earlier, how can you find out who the company is which of the companies it should be where you should apply or not? Because to be honest, the whole application journey is a long journey that could be, also tied to failure, which you can then attribute to yourself. What did you do wrong? Is it you or not? And there's it's a pitfall, a rabbit hole that you don't want to go into for the wrong company, right? So you want to you have to be very selective about where you want to apply, and then you can go all in. Okay, many of the PhD students or postdocs who come to me say, well, I don't know what I do. I already have hundreds, like 110 applications sent out, and I haven't heard of any of them. I'm like, can I have a look at them? And then the cover letter is very generic, or there are spelling errors or something, it's very boring or whatever. We'll talk about it, but essentially you want to know what you should write in your cover letter, in your motivational letter. And that's information that you get through the information interviews. Because that lingo that they are using, that's your lingo that you should be using in the cover letter. Because then everyone who reads that thinks, wow, that person, even though he's got a PhD, she already sounds like one of us. She already behaves like one of us. And that's only wisdom or insight that you can only have through information interviews. Okay? So, and just one side to that, or one aspect to that also, in information interviews, do not think that you should interview a person with all your questions that you have prepared. You don't ask her 10 questions. You ask only a couple of questions, But if you ask a couple of people all these questions together in a it'll become a compound effect. Okay, because you can probably go into the third or fourth interview much more prepared, and you make a better impression. And that's why it's also important to schedule out the interviews in advance as well as possible. Okay, do you like what I have shared with you? Was that in any way insightful? I'd love to see any comments. You should also subscribe, because I'll be doubling downing. I will double down on YouTube as well. So if you like what you've heard, please give me a like. Please also subscribe to this channel. It would mean a lot to me, because it's a reinforcement that I know that it's worth to double down. All right, so next thing is the number 6. So, well, you have to customize your applications. I already said that before, but now it's time, since you have sort of like a funnel, since you have now selected to whom you want to apply really, you can now use that information from the information interviews and court your preferred employers. Okay, so you could now come to me and say, well, Eleanor, it's a great resignation. Everyone is, switching from one company to the others. And I heard that some companies are already having trouble to fill in the gaps. Yeah, that's true. But I guess that most of the people who have found easily jobs during the pandemic are the ones who were, really valuable to the company, that felt treated badly. And that way, because they had already a good network, they found easily a new employer. But for all of us who are not really the dream candidate, because to be honest, we didn't study IT, or we didn't study, we aren't the engineer, but still you want to become an expert in that kind of job, then it's quite hard to convince a robotic recruiter. And a robotic recruiter is someone, or is a machine. It's an artificial intelligence. It's machine learning, and they read the CV and will probably take you out because you don't have the right bachelor or master or whatever background. Right? Your chance will be bigger if you are using the right terminology to court and also to convince the machine that is also, reading your applications and put you to the pile of yes or no on the short list. Okay, so without that suitable background, it will be hard, and that's why you shouldn't be too easy on applications, but instead you should put a lot of investment into networking to the right people and to try to jump that line for robotic recruiting. Okay, so what you want to make the people in the company see is they should want you in their team, and that's an emotional factor. That's like, okay, so it's not my first, you are not my first choice, but I think that you've got something interesting that will be beneficial for us in the company in the long run, in the midterm to long run. All right. So it could be that, okay, I'm actually looking for somebody else with different skills, but I'm sure that with the right attitude that you bring to the table, with the intelligence that you have, with the willingness to work and invest and so on and so forth, you probably will learn these skills as needed in a fast way. And that's where you are then in the game, right? So you have to make the people want you in their team. Number 7, the executive research summary. Okay, I've seen, because I've been doing a lot of recruiting interviews as the expert, not HR, but as the expert from the IT unit. Okay, so asked whether I would want to work with that person in my team. And I said sometimes no or even yes. So I know the recruiting part from that experience. And I've seen great candidates, especially scientists or ex-scientists, stumbling in this direction, because at the end of the day, you probably are asking as a nice HR person, so why are you wanting to change from science too? Because you've been already advanced, you've got a doctorate. Why didn't you do something else instead of the doctorate if research wasn't for you? And now that I see that you have also a postdoc, why did you do the postdoc, and why do you now want to go outside of science? And that's a question that you have to answer really well. So you have to storytell that really well, rehearse that so you're not stumbling. And also, maybe then they're asking, okay, so just in all brevity, what was your research about? And then you don't say, yes, it was the blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't matter. They don't understand. They don't acknowledge that, they don't appreciate it, but instead it will make the impression of wasting their time. And they will feel dumb. And that's why you should have a short executive summary that is legible in plain words, telling what your research was about, and ideally which one or two practical business implications it had. That's it. They won't understand the title of your papers. They won't understand the title of your dissertation, whatever. So just as a very easy summary of your research. Okay, and then point number 8. The application order is key. Okay, so applying for a job is a stressful situation. It's a process that you have to train because it has certain steps. It's always nearly the same, and it's almost foreseeable. So I loved to be part of the application process because I was able to, it's obviously it does feel different on the other side, but for me also, who had a lot of interviews, it was always like, let's see whether I want to work with them. And that's the end of at the end of the day, the information that we want to have is, will I be able to work with that person? Will I want to work for her? Will I want to work with her or him, right? All right. So practice with lower stress levels to thrive when you have to. Means apply to the 5th preferred employer, then to the 4th, then to the 3rd, and obviously your first preferred employer will be the last. Many reasons. 1, you practice, you get better. So with this better performance, you will woo and not only court your preferred employer. And also, you probably will think, the second best employer that you apply to, you probably will get also a job interview and also a job offer. And then if you have that at the table, you can go to your first preferred employer, and then you can negotiate whether that contract should be improved because based on that alternative offer, right? If you don't have anything in your hands, then you won't be able to negotiate. And that's why application order is so different and also so important. Ideally, you have 2 offers or more even at the table. And then you should confirm that one offer that you want to be because it has all the decisive factors. So I want you to weigh all your factors, and then you have to, weigh them against each other, and you can factor in how important they are and what are the ones. And at the end of the day, you'll get a score internally. I'll do that as a score, obviously, as a scientist. And then, whether it's a great score or not, and then you can still have a gut feeling or not. But at the end of the day, I'd really calculate that. And you can also you have to check your contract conditions. There are actually lawyers who are specialized in work contracts. So if you haven't known this because you are, You think that finally you got a postdoc contract for 3 months or 6 months and you're happy. Well, in business, it's all different. You have a lot of benefits and compensations, and you want to make sure that you get what you deserve, right? So at the end of the day, I think most important thing is how well it is aligned to your vision of life. And that means whether the next couple of years in that company will have a big probability to bring you forward into that vision of life. It doesn't have to be your job for life. It has to be just the next best match. All right. So, and if you've done that and you've just decided for the next best match in your career, then obviously you can already be happy and looking forward to your new job. And what should you do then? I can tell you that you will have to be rested well. So clear your mind. Thank all the scientific peers, your guides, your principal investigators, everyone, the supervisors, the dean of the school, whoever will have a bad impression of you if you don't say thank you, or even make them see make them happy, right? Make them understand that you leaving science is not against their graduate school, their studies, against their lab, and something like that. So clear your mind, do not burn bridges. And the second one is get rest, okay? Do not start just the next month after graduation with your new job. If you were able to land a job right after graduation, that's perfect, but you don't have to start the next month after the graduation. I always negotiated at least a month as a break, and you need that because you've been from black to white, right? It's like it's no gradual transition. It will be a leap, and you will need your energy to tackle everything and to digest everything that is needed to be thriving and to hit the ground running. And that's not when you are still exhausted from your PhD or from your postdoc, right? So digest the relevant information. Now that you have confirmed to be working for that company, I've looked everywhere to find information that is incoming regarding that company, so that you know things ahead of time before you actually start in the company, so that they don't have to tell you and stuff like that. And you will make a good impression on them when you say, yeah, I heard this. Or you can proactively frame your questions in the context of, as this will be happening anytime soon, what do you think? Shall we now consider doing this? So you're asking a well-informed question that will make a very well impression, okay? And you should also start networking in person. So we had a session for National Postdoc Appreciation Week about networking. If you haven't seen this, I recommend watching this, because I think that we shared a lot of things, and you should also think about it. Most of that was also more virtual, and now you have to switch to in-person networking, because now it's about learning the team members. Getting to know the team members and also the leadership. All right, so with all that said, I guess that you understand that we need a lot of time ahead before we can actually leave. It does take a lot of time. And I actually think that you should start at least 6 to 9, at best 12 months before you actually leave, okay? And if you need a little bit more structured guidance, which probably most of the PhD students opt in for, is that when you think that you are ready to leave and you need structured guidance, then I would also recommend signing up for this free email course, where I have all 10 steps laid out a little bit more detailed in writing, And it's like a nudge that comes every 4 weeks unless you binged it. Okay, so you can binge and get the emails in a shorter time frame, like in 20 minutes or so. And I do not recommend this because I think that all of this are psychologically really hard things to grasp and to, they're mind-boggling if you haven't done this before. And you need time to adjust mentally to your new situation. But we all know, if you don't have time, you can binge it, and I'm the last person to not let you binge it. It's all free, all right? So, if you are still the first person or first time watching this and you haven't seen all our other career sessions, this is the 4th one. So it's 10 steps to transition your career into business. And before that, I did the how to check your readiness to leap out of science, how to network, and also how to use social media to boost your career transition. And tomorrow, I'll be having the grand finale because I think in my own transition, I'm a serial transitioner. I'm a professor of industrial and occupational psychology still today, but I have also founded my own business the same year I became a professor. Okay, so the same year I became a professor, I was pregnant and also founded my own business. And this entrepreneur spirit is something that I want to share with you. So tomorrow we will have a session about being a mom, being a professor, and also a business owner. If that is interesting for you, please share this whole session and all the other parts, if you like, with every one of your scholar friends, because I think that it's something that you probably won't hear at your graduate school or from your professor, because they usually don't have that experience. So even if they wanted to share, they don't have it. So please share it with whoever will benefit from that. And you're thinking like, that's really generous and why it's all free, because I'm a digital strategist and I can leverage all my digital tools to provide value for, I'm not saying minimal effort, but it's still, once it's written down, it can scale. And that's why I'm saying it's okay to have it for free. But I do earn money with paid services, and that is that graduate schools come to me and say, can you do an e-course for us? And I have e-courses ready for them to use. I can customize everything so that their graduate schools that graduate students, their PhD students will be able to see all the e-courses, and they get reflection tasks and everything else. And they also get to know me in a workshop of 5 hours, or even in a membership that goes 1 year, and where I will also individually guide their PhD students along their application life cycle. So if you want that, you have to ask your graduate school or your university to book me. But if you can't find them to book me, you still have free resources on my investment as an email course. So without any more content here, I would like to thank you for your attention. Please do like it and comment, and I'll see you maybe tomorrow in the next live for National Postdoc Appreciation Week. I hope that you had fun and also value in there, and please make sure that you also watch the other content from National Postdoc Appreciation Week. Bye. My name is Soei-Winkels from PostdocTransformation.